Hi, and welcome to this BNEWS Special Report. I'm BNEWS Reporter Chris Flaherty, and I'm here with Sarah Eshelman, the English and Journalism teacher at Burlington High School. Sarah, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming in.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So today we're talking journalism. So right off the bat, can you just tell me about yourself, your background, and how you came to teach journalism here at BHS?
Absolutely. So, oh gosh, trying to think how far back. So I started teaching here in 2017, and I actually was hired to fill in the spot that Callie Graham, who's now our high school librarian, just a spot that she had in the English department, and she was teaching journalism. And I distinctly remember in the interview, they said, "Oh, you'll be teaching journalism. Does that sound interesting to you?" And I said, "I love reading the paper, yeah." And they're like, "Oh, she has no idea how much work this is." Like, so that's really how I got started. I don't actually have any formal training in journalism. My undergrad is in secondary education in English. My graduate degree is in English. But I mean, it's true. I love reading the paper. I love staying on top of news and being aware of things. So it's kind of where it got going.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, just gonna skip my next question.
Oh, did I fill it in for you?
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, you filled it in really. So just talk about the class itself, like what's expected of students in the class and what type of work do they have to do throughout the year?
Right, so in the class itself, students are expected to be producing stories according to whatever unit we're doing. So there is a bit of a cycle to it where every single quarter we do produce a print publication. You know, in an ideal world, when we are able to pay for publication, we can actually have it printed on paper. And I kind of am finding ways to sort of like give them more and more independence. Like right now we're just about ready to publish our spring issue, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to kind of back up on some of my feedback because you've done this before. Like, so it's kind of taking the training wheels off of them a little bit. So again, once a quarter they produce print articles, depending on what like level of difficulty of class they chose to take, whether it's honors level, college prep level. They may be asked to interview more people. But then sort of in between, I don't like to do like print two back-to-back, you know, because that can feel a little samey. I like to try to mix it up a little bit. Been adding, I think this year I'm finding a good rhythm where like, hey, let's take a pause and do photojournalism. Let's take a pause and talk about opinion. How do we have a good opinion writing? We wrapped up earlier this month with our broadcast unit. I'm working on publishing their broadcasting, and then I'm looking ahead to next quarter into podcasting. So sort of a mix, but every single time students are expected to come up with a story. We talk about newsworthiness. I help them kind of think about like who are good people to interview, and then they got to just go and pursue it.
Awesome. So every student is producing a piece every quarter for the paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's written, sometimes it's broadcast, podcast.
Exactly. It depends on the skill that we're working on and like what we are trying to reinforce for them. Yeah.
How much of the reporting is focused on the school versus like the town and then like the national scope?
It's really up to the student. One of the things I love teaching with this class is it's so student focused and student centered. It's like, hey, what's interesting to you? What are you noticing? What do you want to talk about? Again, over the years, just with teaching for anything, I'm always finessing and making things a little bit better. So I've started lately with brainstorming. It's very hard to brainstorm something out of like an empty well, you know? So I started adding a little activity where students would just check out headlines on national news headlines on BCAT. I have them check.
Thank you.
Yep, don't worry. Just what are the headlines that are happening, copy and paste the headlines, and then start thinking of stories. It really depends on the students. I've had students in the past that were very passionate about national news, so we would kind of get more into that. Other times students really want to focus on things that are happening here at the school, like policy decisions or student opinions. We always have a crew of students who are very passionate about sports journalism, whether that's Boston sports, or I also try to encourage them to also look at, you know, student sports. I think one thing I always try to get them to think about is localizing the story. Like, okay, yes, you're going to talk about this national issue. Well, fine, you're going to interview local people. So how can you make it like, what does Burlington think? What does BHS think? BHS students think of this. So that's kind of part of our discussion. But there's a whole process where they brainstorm and then submit a proposal where they say, this is what I'm thinking of doing. this is why it's newsworthy. These are the people I'm thinking of interviewing, and we have a dialogue about it. Like, hey, this looks good, or maybe have you considered this?
Yeah, I was looking through a bunch of old issues. Not that I like have every issue of the Devil's Advocate saved, longtime reader. But I see like there's sports, there's arts and entertainment, there's like student profiles. Like I remember one, there was like they were profiling like student rappers, and I think
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
And then I saw like a think piece on Barbie. So it's very different depending on the student interest. You're
Exactly, and I think that makes it more authentically student-led, authentically a student publication. Like I do to the best of my ability, I try to back out. Like, hey, listen, I'm here to teach you the skill. I'm here to be your teacher in the curriculum. I'm here to advise, but this is yours.
Yeah.
Like this belongs to you. Yeah.
Are the students doing a lot of fundraising in the class for the paper, or is that something the club has to handle?
It is a really funny mix with the class and the club. The class has a lot more time to like sort of generate and power the actual writing itself. But I find that the club and the class sort of work in tandem. I give the club a little bit more like sort of leadership roles in that way. I know it's a challenge for a lot of students to be able to stay after school, but I think that's sort of a team effort. A lot of the fundraising is we work with some local like restaurants for fundraising. We also try to sell ads as well, and that one I do have my students do. And
nice.
In the years past, I used to give a grade for that, but that always felt a little bit icky because not all students have access to be able to drive around and talk to local business folks. But it has really slowed down this year, so that's why our spring issue will be published online this week.
And what's coming up in the spring issue?
Oh gosh, now you're making me think.
I'm sorry.
I do know I've got a couple of profiles. I have one student who's writing about how winter sports went, so she's writing about interviewing as many winter athletes. Another student looking ahead to baseball and like what the baseball season's looking at. I have a student who's looking into Starbucks versus Dunkin'. Like, what is BHS's preference? I know. Oh, and also Starbucks, Dunkin', or True North.
Oh.
So she's looking at like what are some of the trends there. Another student is paying attention. Hey, April is Autism Awareness Month. So she's writing about autism and like interviewing people with autism and talking to experts and trying to create a story. So I've got 17 students in the class, so I've got 17 stories coming out.
And that's a full year class. It's not like half a. Okay.
It's a full year class. I think it's the only English elective it's a full year, mostly because of the skills. It would be very challenging for me to have to like reintroduce the skills, again, because I think we spend a good 3 weeks at least being like, okay, journalism ethics, journalism law. Okay, how do you write an article? Because a lot of students are so used to writing for English and history, but as you know, journalism writing is completely different.
Yeah.
So it's a very different approach. So you kind of have to really like take time to do that. And if it was a half-year class, we would lose a lot of momentum, and it would be hard to have to reteach everything so many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the website, is that like sort of in tandem with the print, or is it like different versus? Is what goes on the website different from what goes on print?
Ideally, yes. Again, this is very much based on what students want to pursue. The advantage that the website has, like as I'm sure you know, is that you can publish immediately.
Yeah.
So we can immediately, hey, there's something's going on, it's boom, like done. We don't have to wait for the next wave of publication. We don't even have to wait till like, oh, do we have enough money? We can just put it on there. So there's a little bit more flexibility with the website. We do try to update as best we can once a week with little announcements because there are just so many things that are going on at the school. We don't even know all the cool things that are happening. There's so many great clubs, great events. So we're just trying to capture and publish as best we can. But the one challenge is I think the website doesn't have the same kind of visibility, say, than like the physical paper.
Okay, I was gonna ask, do you see more people going to the website now versus the print?
It's hard to get the analytics, to be honest with you. So I don't know. I think one challenge we're going to try to do is really advertise the website and say, hey, like, check it out. It's really cool.
Yeah. We should put that link on the screen
I got you.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link.
Okay. So, like, just on the broader scope, like, what have you seen change over time, like, just with local papers and just, like, working here at BCAT, like, how journalism has changed?
I mean, it changed a lot, obviously. I think the biggest, I mean, obviously the biggest thing, like this is kind of predating my time here, but just with the advent of the internet and the ease at which people can kind of get information for free. I mean, for free, but caveats around that. And just how we have shifted away from paying for our news to a more advertising based, and that obviously has decimated many local newspapers. I still subscribe to the Boston Globe because I'm just like, I believe in this work. But I think it is something where we are seeing a lot of, I think, decentralization, I would say, if that makes sense. I'm thinking about nowadays, we see a lot more like citizen journalists. You see social media, people like being live at an event and recording it.
Yes.
But they're not themselves necessarily trained in journalism, so they wouldn't think of like who to talk to. They wouldn't think of like how to report on what they're seeing. So certainly in terms of like that kind of shift as well, and maybe even just like in terms of people consuming the news. We were talking. We had a club meeting I think last week. And we talked about, okay, we need to start really upping our social media presence because that's how students are getting their news.
Sure.
So if we can be a little bit more active in social media, then maybe we can pull students into the work that we're doing. So it's just a lot more pivoting, a lot more where you kind of had to capture eyes in very different ways than maybe you did before. There wasn't like a reliable audience, I think, in the way that I would say maybe in the past.
Yeah. As a Boston Globe subscriber, why do you think local news is still important?
Oh, I mean, how else are you going to know what's going on? There's a lot of research into even the very connection between local news and democracy. You know, an informed public knows to go out to the polls. We actually have a vote coming up in April 11th, local town elections. People in this town wouldn't know about it if it wasn't for BCAT to tell us and to to interview the candidates and to inform the public. And that, I mean, that's like an example. But again, there's multiple studies and research has shown over and over again that having a really robust local news keeps citizens informed of what's happening in their own local government. I think we get, I mean, understandable in terms of like we think about significance and impact when it comes to newsworthiness. We do really pay attention quite a bit to the national news because it feels so big. But the local stuff, local things that are happening politically, that impacts you immediately.
Right.
You know, if you're ever like, oh, why is this like that? Then go to a town meeting, and see why and find out why. So it goes down to just informing the public on what is happening. What are the systems that are going on? What are the decisions that are being made, and who's making those decisions? And then, like, as a representative democracy that we live in, that gives us more information.
Right. And you mentioned ethics earlier, and that plays such a big role in journalism. How do you teach that to students?
I sort of break it down first with just the basic law, like journalism law. Like let's talk, what is plagiarism, fabrication, libel law, what's like copyright law, what's invasion of privacy, what are these things that we talk about? So it kind of bring these home quite clearly. And then I do think I can do a lot more in terms of like the bias side of things. We talk about like avoiding bias. We talk about like, okay, if you're going to interview one person who hates something, try to find someone who likes it. Right. So at least you have that kind of balance, and how like the reporter themselves, in their language, they have to be quite balanced. But I know I can do a little bit more. It's just that bias is so hard because you can be reading something and be like, oh, this is so perfect and informative, and it's incredibly biased, but you agree with it. It's very hard to see the bias that you agree with. Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because, I mean, at this time in the world, there are a lot of different opportunities to get your news. Some voices conflict with others. How do we educate students to remain impartial and unbiased in their reporting? I find a lot of it comes in terms of my feedback that I give. There's a lot of opportunities both in the proposal, we look at the rough drafts, they peer edit themselves first, and then I take a second look. So it's kind of in those smaller moments of like, hey, the wording of this feels a little strong. I don't think I even used the word bias as much as say opinionated. The way you worded this is very opinionated. Let's try not to say I. So it kind of comes across more in those little moments of like kind of like feedback and like correction. But I think this is also an area of growth for me as a teacher. Like, hey, this is something I can really try to dig more into. It is really tricky though, because you don't want to like step on anyone's toes or like, I don't know, imply that a student's favorite podcaster is wrong or something like that. So it's just one of those things where like, okay, how do we teach it? How do we teach students to kind of think? And a lot of it's like, okay, well, what do multiple sources say? Is this being corroborated by other people? What is your source? Who's talking? That kind of thing.
Well, I think that's just the challenge journalism is facing right now. We have these news sources that are supposed to be impartial, but you definitely see some bias and opinions seeping through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes back to maybe just trying to have a varied diet. Like I know I'm kind of speaking to myself where like I need to do that as well. But finding ways that you can sort of vary your media diet.
And you mentioned you give the students the opportunity to do opinion pieces.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's like a good balance right there.
Exactly.
Yeah. How would you describe journalism, or how do you define journalism as a teacher to your students?
Gosh, this is like a September. What do I do in September and August? I mean, I would say it's simply put like telling the community what is going on and doing it ethically. One of the things, I think when I started doing this, but I really enjoyed doing, I started having the class every single year develop a new intention statement. You know, so it's like I think we go through the ethics, we go through what is journalism. You know, the fact that journalism is I think the only industry outside of like the political sphere that's specifically mentioned in the Constitution. The freedom of the press, that is enshrined in the First Amendment. And so we talk a lot about this and what is the power of the press and all of that. So it's okay, think about the responsibility, think about the ethics, think about like sort of the freedom that we have. What is our intention for the school year? And we kind of go through multiple drafts in developing this intention statement. And it's always something like we will inform the community, inform BHS, and we'll do so with ethically and fairly without bias. It's some kind of variation of that.
Oh, okay. I was going to put you on the spot. Like, do you remember some of the intention statements?
That's generally where it falls on.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure our intention statement is on the website, and if it's not, I will add it before this publishes.
Awesome. How do you respond to people who feel the media is biased? And I feel like there is some distrust in journalism and the news these days. How do you respond to that?
I think my first question is like, what do you mean by biased, and like specifically how? So I do think as a society we've lost a lot of trust in institutions. I mean, my opinion, this is purely my opinion, I kind of wonder if it goes back to Watergate. You know, you have this really huge scandal, like high level amount of corruption, and just kind of created this sort of cultural like distrust. And even if you can go even further back to Vietnam War, you can go further back to the 60s. But certainly now with so much of our media and our content and our society in terms of like what we watch and read and listen to is so decentralized with the social media. I think we just don't have a lot of trust in institutions. So there's kind of that going on. But we're saying, oh, something is so biased. Well, what do you mean by that? Is it actually biased, or is it that you just don't like the facts? Because sometimes it's just that we don't like the facts, and they make us feel uncomfortable because they clash against our worldview. And that's something to kind of have to reckon with. And it is, and I feel that too. Sometimes I will see something and I was like, I don't want to believe that's true. That makes me feel like upset or angry because I disagree with it. But a fact is a fact is a fact.
Right.
You know, so I think it's a little bit of that, again, institutional distrust, and also we just need to be better at breaking through algorithms. You know, we have these social media companies that are making a lot of money off of our attention and creating these algorithms that keep us in a bubble. And it's like kind of making us very allergic to hearing other voices. And
I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier about how everybody is kind of just out there with, you know, the microphone and presenting themselves as a journalist.
Yes, absolutely. And it's like a tricky thing because I think citizen journalism is really powerful. You know, I think like major changes have happened because of that. But I think there's something to be said about really knowing who your source is. And I kind of at the same time understand like some frustration with maybe institutions, but okay, well then find a specific journalist who you trust. Find someone who has over and over again shown themselves to be willing to be wrong, someone who has willing to learn, someone who you can kind of check their values and, okay, this person's consistently pretty solid. This person I would trust as a journalist, you know what I mean? Or this person I can like, okay, this person's not biased and so, in that degree.
You brought up a good point. It's nice to admit when you're wrong. And
that's really hard,
yeah.
You know, and none of us like to admit that. And I know that very much of myself, you know, but
Makes
it is,
two of us.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where maybe we need to start recognizing that, oh, actually, I don't know everything, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. How do we inspire students to go into this field when there's so much mistrust and misinformation?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I do have students who do want to go into journalism. They're very interested in it. I think a big piece of it is showing the power of journalism, showing the impact that investigation and asking questions and like, hey, like once this one story broke and now changes are happening because people are responding and reading the story and then goes further and further and further. So just kind of showing that journalism is powerful, you know, and that can be hard because again, like if a tree falls in the forest, can anyone hear it? You know, people aren't reading the news, we're going to be missing out on this opportunity. But I think that can be really inspiring for students to see, you know, that their voices have power.
Yeah, it can be tough to just be like, hey, I'm with so-and-so news, and they're like, oh, nope, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
What would you like to see for the future of journalism, both here at the high school and just on a larger scale?
I would love to see students continuing taking the class. Again, actually this year has been really exciting. So with the class, there's actually 2 classes. There's Journalism 1 and Journalism 2. So
how do those compare?
They are actually in the same class at the same time. So
interesting. Okay.
So actually I can have in one classroom in the same period, I can have a student who's taking Journalism 2 honors, Journalism 2 college prep, Journalism 1 honors, you know.
Awesome.
But so I call them my J2 students because that's easier. But the students who are taking Journalism 2, they're sort of tracking through the rest of the curriculum and they get to reinforce their skills, but they have an added project every quarter of their choice. I think this year has been really exciting because it's the biggest cohort of Journalism 2 students. I have 6 students who I had last year and they wanted to come back and I was just like very excited to have them again. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to make you all mentors. So I created mentor groups and like, okay, you go help the J1 students because you already know, like you know what's going on, you can help them out. So again, between like having 6 Journalism 2 students and 11 Journalism 1 students, this is a really big class. So it's been really exciting to have so many stories coming out and so many students being trained up in this kind of thinking. So in terms of the future of the class, I'm really excited. I would love to see it to continue to like keep growing. I would also love to see students come back, whether through the club. It's a real challenge for students to stay after school. I know with the BCAT TV club, it's really hard to get students because there's sports and it's so late and you have your driving test and you have an essay and like
jobs, all that good stuff.
It's not easy. But I would also love to see like more students really invested in the club and kind of continuing and pursuing and being curious. So that's something I would love to see.
Awesome. And then just on the larger scale of journalism in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see freedom of the press be protected and for journalists to be safe. I mean, journalism is in many ways a dangerous profession. And so I would love to see policies and laws put into place to protect journalists because even though they're often challenging those in power, we need them. We need their perspective, we need their expertise, we need their reporting. So I think sort of large scale like that, I would love to see that, as well as I'm seeing so many interesting creative ways to sort of navigate the shifting financial realities of journalism. Again, with like, I'm seeing some creating nonprofits as a way to keep it going. Just like interesting like ways to keep journalism alive and make sure that journalists have a living wage because they more than deserve it.
Awesome. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for coming in.
Chris, thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Anytime. And thank you all for watching this BNEWS Special Report. We'll see you next time, and don't forget to stay tuned to your local news, both at BNEWS, Burlington High School, and all the other local affiliates.